Some of the greatest music that was ever written came out of times of great struggle, whether it be a heartbreak or just bad times going on with government or situations, but always the best era of music or the best songs that are created come mostly from suffering. And if you can apply that to your life as well, because to me, the worst thing you can say to somebody is, oh, this too shall pass. When someone loses a child, that's not passing.
Yeah,
When you're
that's very
diagnosed.
dismissive. And
Yes,
you understand, as part of the yin yang, the balance, and part of being understanding is most of the time people don't mean any harm by it, but it's a really ignorant thing to say.
agreed. So instead, create something beautiful out of it. And the only way of doing that is by, as you said, get out of the box, be active within yourself, fix what you can, and just learn to deal with what you can't. And through that, you can take a situation, and it could be years, it could be decades, it could be minutes, depending on what it is. But you can find the joy in life because you went through that experience. I mean, if every day was great, you'd never know it, for one.
Yeah, and that's what we've been so desperately trying to create for several decades now, is the utopia, the panacea, the place where nothing is wrong. And we've been doing it with prescription drugs and with television and arts and entertainment and everything else that we try to craft to pretend like nothing's wrong, so we don't have to look at it.
Exactly. And like you said, read, write, and connect, think. When you're write about your pain, if that's your thing, writing it down, looking at it, seeing what it is so that you can own it and recognize the parts that you can fix yourself.
It's critically important that you write about, particularly about pain and suffering in your life, because if you don't, it's a bottle with a cork stuffed into it, and
Right.
it's either going to die in a cellar or it's going to explode. It's critically important that you write about that. And it's not easy. But that's the thing, is that none of this is easy. I said right here, and I'm not the first or millionth person to ever say that life doesn't have an easy button. But you have to face it. And in doing so, you're never, if you have a tragedy in your life, it's never going to go away. It's never going to be gone. You're never going to get over it, but you have to learn to live with it, or you're not going to live. Maybe your purpose, if you can't find anything else, is to be there for someone else to learn from you, to help someone else deal with something. And the fact of the matter is that the healing works both ways when that happens. And it can't be toxic. It can't be poisonous. There's a big, big difference between sharing and sympathizing and empathizing and growing and accepting pain, dealing with pain. There's a big difference between that and having some sort of toxic back and forth where nothing gets resolved. And too often we degrade, we devolve into such a discussion, and nothing productive ever comes out of it. And typically what you'll find is a compadre to a codependent individual that, instead of either of you elevating the other one, both of you are dragging each other down.
Well, and that's also a form of addiction.
Oh, totally. Completely. I mean, it's an addiction within an addiction. It's crazy. Whatever you can do, no one wants to be miserable alone. So whatever your misery is, if you don't have the discipline to elevate and raise yourself above it and cut away the toxicity, then you're going to look to drag people down with you. And it's an addiction within an addiction, because you can't do this alone. You cannot be miserable alone. And that's one of those things we get into discussions. I've been in discussions with people, because it's a sensitive point when you talk about cutting away. When I say elevate, surround yourself with people who elevate you. I'm 51 years old, and I have absolutely no desire to have anyone in my life at all, in any facet, in any means of connection to my life, who is going to drag me down or drag me into something or do anything other than make me look at them and go, damn, I'd like to be more like them. And that pretty well means that my damn circle is going to be real small. And I'm okay with that. I don't need 500 people around me. That's talk about codependency. I don't need a bunch of people around me, because guarantee the more people you stack around you, the more poisonous that circle is going to become. We're not meant to know that many people anyway. I mean, think about it. Think about before we became this intercontinental, traveling society, you didn't know that many people. Before you could, after the telegraph and then the telephone, and before the age of electronics, when you could communicate instantaneously with anybody around the world, the reason that life was more peaceful on a micro level, and maybe that's the wrong word, maybe not peaceful, but how about maybe more manageable? Because you didn't know everyone's problems. You didn't see 500 people on Facebook complaining about something, or the opposite of that, which is image crafting, which is designed specifically to, whether you know it or not, to make other people jealous, to make other people feel bad. Look at me, like you just said. And we're not meant to be able to handle. Most of us can't handle our own problems. We certainly can't handle everybody else's problems. And when you have people, you walk into anybody's house or office or check into a hotel, when you're in the lobby, or the dentist office, or wherever the hell you are, what are you going to walk into and see? You're either going to see CNN or Fox News and or the Weather Channel and or some kind of daytime TV. And all of a combination of all that. And none of that is any good. It's all poison, and it's all meant to alarm you. And you can't handle all of that negativity. If you pick up a newspaper once a day, like we did back in the grandpa's days, if you pick up a newspaper once a day and you read the whole thing, you might learn about a fire in the town next to yours. You might learn about, somebody's son took the cow to the 4-H thing and won a blue ribbon. You're going to pick up little bits of information within your own little sphere. But now you know everything all the time, and it's all geared to alarm you. There's an agenda behind it all. So how are you ever going to do any of this? How are you ever going to find a mode of existence that is so meaningful that it renders the suffering gone when you are completely, totally, 100% exposed to all of that? And so that is my really crazy roundabout way of talking about how, when I talk about surrounding myself with people who elevate me, that means, quite frankly, the equal and opposite reaction is there's a lot of people that are gone from my life now, and that's okay. They're going to be okay. They need to do their own thing. I'm sure as hell more okay.